If you work for the Catholic Church and want to transform your parish and put more souls in the pews, we are here to help. I'm John Kahns, and this is the Catholic Ministry Professionals Podcast, your favorite leadership development podcast for Catholic churches. Each week, you can expect engaging discussions, expert interviews, and actionable advice to help you move Jesus' mission forward in your parish. Today, we're having a direct conversation with a mental health therapist at Integrative Psychology Services, Justin Derry. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, John. Yeah.
You know, Justin, we met just a few days ago over the phone, and we've been talking. Of course, I heard about you from a friend who said you should definitely be on the podcast. I love this idea of, integrating the whole person in how you approach mental health awareness, conflict avoidance, passive aggressiveness, fuzzy boundaries, all these things that you work with people. So I'm just getting a kind of a general scope of the work that you do, Justin, but I'd love for our listeners, just to give them kind of the 10,000 foot view. Who is Justin? What does he do? What's at the heart of this calling that you have on your life and this work that you do?
Oh, yeah. No, thank you, John. I guess who is Justin? I'm a sinner. I'm a husband. I'm a father. There's a lot of pieces to that. Of course, a son of the one who all fatherhood comes from too. I guess I'm 42. I've been working now in mental health field for over 15 years. I'm in different capacities, and I am passionate about helping people just, pursue God's calling in their life and to have that freedom that Christ had to say, thy will be done, not my own. And then to also take the steps to make that happen. So
I love that. I was actually I was praying before I hopped on the podcast with you, and it's the gospel about the house built on rock. And Jesus says twice in this gospel, listen to these words of mine. Those who hear these words of mine will be like this house that's built on rock. And so
Yeah.
much of human flourishing, joy,
Yeah.
simply doing the thing to which you feel called, right? Hearing his voice, hearing the voice of the Father, and then trying to implement that will in your life to the utmost extent that you can, right? And just hearing those words and responding. When we do that thing that we are called to do, things like peace, things like joy, take root in our lives and in our world. And you must see that all the time, just that connection in the work that you do.
Yeah. Well, and it's as simple as entering into a tough conversation,
Mm.
right? And I think this kind of maybe goes into some of what we want to talk about of going into a tough conversation. Most people don't want to do that, right? It's uncomfortable. You have these emotions come up: anxiety, fear of rejection, fear of loss of a relationship. But being able to speak those words, right? I would say in a kind way. I think
Yeah.
nice gets overused, but in a kind way, even when you're feeling uncomfortable.
Mm.
I don't think Christ was super excited when he was sweating blood in the Garden of Gethsemane to go to the cross. And yet he subjected himself to the will of his Father.
Yeah.
He took those
Absolutely.
steps.
Wonderful. Yeah.
And so that when I work with my clients, that's the freedom I talk about. It's not the freedom saying that you will never feel these things. You'll never experience these thoughts that are unpleasant. It's rather that you can experience those things and still pursue Christ.
Man, that's so important too. I'm someone who I struggle with anxiety on different levels like everybody else. And I have always found that the tension is where God is inviting you to really encounter him, to lean on him, to cast yourself fully upon him, to seek refuge in
Yeah.
him. And it's on the other side of that tension, things might not work out perfectly, but on the other side of that tension, there's freedom, there's release, there's thriving in a certain level.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's turn it towards then. I want to take kind of this concept that you brought up, this idea of conflict, tough conversations. But when you look at parish teams, 'cause I believe you work with some parish teams, you do some development with people. Of course, you do your own therapeutic sessions and everything.
Yeah.
But when you look at parish teams and ministry environments, what unhealthy relationship patterns do you see the most when you look at teams?
I guess the most common thing I come across is avoidance,
Mhm.
conflict avoidance, where it'll be, yeah, gossip, talking around things. I think if I remember right in like Rediscover Catholicism, I believe Matthew Kelly identifies like the 7%, 10% of people do 90% of the work in organizations and particularly specifically in churches. Um, and those a lot of saying yes to things that maybe people shouldn't be saying yes to because they have squishy boundaries or
Mhm.
they're unwilling to what they perceive as disappoint somebody by saying I can't do that or no. And so overextending, burnout, things like that. I guess and that is all from my perspective, I guess, in service of avoidance.
Mhm.
It's avoiding those tough conversations. It's avoiding, well, that sense of letting somebody down. It's avoiding anxiety in those things. And the easy way out is seen as just, I'll just agree to do this.
Okay, so what's at the root of that? How do we I mean, is it an awareness? Like, I don't realize that I'm avoiding conflict? Is it something else? Like, what's kind of at the root of that? What's underneath those patterns, you know? Yeah, why do good, faithful people who say they trust in the Lord, why are
Yeah.
we so afraid to have these difficult conversations?
Well, and I think that's twofold. I think one, it's maybe a misperception of what the body of Christ looks like, because I think that healthy relationships there's going to be tension, as opposed to maybe this assumption that no, we're just all going to get along,
Mhm.
right? I also think that there's maybe a misunderstanding of when Christ tells us to pick up our cross and to deny ourselves of what that really looks like. Um, uh, when I bring up like self-care topics and things like that, that's kind of the classic response. Like Christ tells me to deny myself, pick up my cross and pursue him. And you're telling me I need to be spending this time taking care of
I
myself.
need to advocate for myself?
Right, right.
Yeah.
How do those things work? And the question is, how do those work in the tension? And I like to say the Catholic faith is a faith of tension. We live in a faith of and, right, where Christ is both man and God. The Trinity, right? We say God is three persons and it's one. And so this tension is just a of how do I care for myself? Like when Christ goes off with his apostles and rests. If I remember correctly, it's three different times throughout the Gospels, at least, where he is even encouraging his apostles after they come back from casting out demons and preaching the word and healing individuals. They come in and there's just a crowd of individuals and they can't even like get to Christ and eat. And he says, "Well, let's come away and rest."
Hmm.
Right. And so Christ models this for us of where he goes off on mountaintops to pray. He is found early in the morning, often in deserted places, praying and remembering that relationship with his father where his ministry flowed from, right, in
Mhm.
service to that. And so, how do we do that? How do we remember that we have to rely on God? There's a wonderful poem that I came in contact with through the consecration of Saint Joseph about sleep. And in this poem, it talks about God's perspective on people that won't sleep. They won't rest. They're not trusting him to take care of their concerns while they're asleep and resting. They want to do.
Mhm.
And we're human beings, not human doings. And that's quippy, but I think it's true. Where we're called first and foremost to be with God and rest in him and rely on him and trust in him. And yeah, we do need to do the work, need to till and keep the garden.
I love that you said that. Just like for me, I went through a period like this idea of like you need to rest, you need to trust God, and there's I went through a period like a phase. I don't know if it's a phase, but I remember I'd lay down at night and I wouldn't let myself sleep because had become a husband and a father, and I
Yeah.
thought, "Who is gonna protect this house while I'm sleeping?" That was
Yeah.
it. That was the thought that was in my head, and it kept me from sleeping. And I came across, I forget if it's Psalm 3 or something like that, but
Okay.
the psalmist writes, "I lie down and I sleep. In the morning I rise again because you sustain me." And it was that simple. Like, it just unlocked. It's like, "Oh, yeah, God's watching." Like,
Yeah.
God's here. And it, like, there's all these practical things too. You can do practical things as well, but it's like, I have to trust that, 1, he's watching out for us, and 2, if someone were to break in or something, like, the spirit's gonna wake me, and
Mhm.
I'm gonna engage in that moment, like, that's gonna, at some point, I'm gonna engage with that moment. So,
Yeah.
just that I've been given the grace that I need to handle whatever it is, and that he ultimately is the one who sustains and protects and maintains and all that stuff, and so I can give him that burden. I
Yeah.
can give that to him and
Yeah.
offload it from my shoulders at all moments of all times of the day.
Yeah.
And
It
that's the same in our work too.
yeah. Yeah, because we have to engage, as you said, right? Like,
Mhm,
we can't just passively, do nothing.
mhm,
Um, it's a both and I think that's where, I work a lot from a virtue mindset of, like, okay, when we think about prudence and we think about, the gift of wisdom from the Holy Spirit, like, we have to use these things to discern what is it that God's calling to me to do right now. And sometimes that might mean, as a father and a husband, it might mean setting aside, for the moment, what may be good for me or my perceived good or my rest. I might need to put that aside so I can take care of a sick child or nurture my pregnant wife with her cravings, right? Like, I might have to do that. And yet, even when Christ does that, what does he do after he gets interrupted on his way up the mountain to rest? And he sees the crowd as a sheep without a shepherd. He preaches to them, he takes care of them, and then he dismisses them and he
mm.
goes up the mountain to pray. He comes back to that thing that nourishes him still. He doesn't ignore it forever. And so when we're looking at taking care of ourselves, yeah, there's a spiritual reality. We have to rely on God, but he gave us bodies. We have to take care of those too.
Yeah.
When he made us as social creatures, right? It's not good for man to be alone. And so we need to encounter all of these different aspects of ourselves and caring for ourselves too.
Yeah, and that then relates into the team again, right? We talk about teams that have healthy patterns or unhealthy patterns, and
Yeah.
many of those can be traced back to individuals, each individual having their own healthy
Yes.
or unhealthy patterns. So you work with the whole person, the mind, the body, the emotion, the spirit. What does an integrated person look like then, and why does that matter so much for ministry teams?
Well, I guess every team I've ever been a part of, I've been told that a team is only, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link,
Hmm.
right? And I guess when I worked for a brief stint as a Knights of Columbus field agent, one of the research things that was brought up to me when talking about high performers is that when a organization would take their lower performers, struggling kind of and they would put them and spread them amongst high performing sales teams, the tendency was not for that individual to rise up. The tendency was for the sales team to come down.
Mm,
And the idea of one bad apple can rot the whole bunch, right? Like, that kind of played out with these organizations that tried that. And and so so taking care of ourselves really is in service of a team. A player can't show up on a team with a broken leg and expect to be of great service to their team. A football, I guess I'm using a sports analogy there, right?
yeah.
So if we're so in order to be of service to others, we do need to take care of ourselves. We need to have our own stuff in order. Can't give what we don't have. So taking care of our bodies, right? Eating, right? Taking care of eating a well-rounded diet. I'm not a dietitian, but there's some basic principles there that we can talk about. Getting proper rest, sleep, Sleep affects everything from our immune responses to our emotional management to the way that we digest our food. We'll be more efficient with our intake if we sleep. So eat, sleep, and exercise. Our bodies are made to move. A piece of research I saw a while back was when they compared people that worked at standing desks, fixed standing desks, to sitting desks, the health problems were the same. The individuals that encountered health benefits from standing desks were the ones that were moving. So they would move their desk up and down, having adjustable desks because our bodies are made to move. Our bodies aren't made to be static.
Mhm.
Right? They're made to do things. So yeah, eat, sleep, and move is what I kind of boil it down to in the work I do.
So what are some of the benchmarks? And I'm just thinking of the Catholic ministry professional that's listening to the
Yeah,
episode right now, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm feeling a little burnt out. I'm a little tired of the personalities on the team and trying to
yeah.
feel like I'm constantly having to make up for the personality gaps and stuff like that. And I just feel a little bit maxed out."
Mhm.
My assumption, and correct me if I'm wrong, my assumption would be that you say, well, there's some imbalance there, and you probably need to work on X, Y, Z. And some of that's going to be taking care of if you're feeling burned out, if you're constantly exhausted, you got to look at your sleep.
Yeah.
What was it? Eat, sleep, move, something like
Eat,
that,
sleep,
or
and move. Yeah.
eat, sleep, and move. What are some of the yeah? What are some of the benchmarks with then that you would start with to say like, okay, I hear what you're saying. Why don't we
Mhm.
look at these three areas and we'll
Yeah.
set some benchmarks? How do you go about having that
So
conversation?
yeah, so if we're focusing on physical, one of the benchmarks would, well, it's all gonna be based on the person's experience, right? Like if I'm working with someone who maybe has some health limitations because of some chronic health problems they have, it's gonna look different. But it's also gonna be, yeah, just asking that kind of question, what are their medical professionals in their life suggesting? Or, do they have some dietary restrictions? Are we talking about diabetes? Because diet looks different for that. Um, but sleep wise, 7 to 10 hours, depending on age. When with college students, we hear 8 a lot, but if you take 100 college students and you take away all reasons for getting them up, they will average over 9 hours of sleep a night. That study's been done. So we're looking at, okay, yeah, sleep is gonna be different per each person. One of the ways I look at that is if you go to sleep at night, how much time does it take for you? How much sleep do you need to feel rested? To wake up and feel rested? And that should be our
I've
goal.
never had that much sleep, so I don't know the answer to that question. Yeah.
But to feel capable.
Yes.
And that helps us kinda gauge what that looks like because, yeah, every individual is different. Exercise, I would say a half hour of at least walking a day. The USDA has some guidelines that I can't pull off the top of my head right now that they gave for physical activity, and and it was based on both, like, rigorous, vigorous activity where it's like you're working so hard you can't talk, as opposed to maybe more moderate activity where it's more of like a marathon running where maybe you could hold a conversation, but you couldn't sing, right? Like, the activity levels are different based on that. But that's yeah, it's about discerning because what it looks like for me to exercise now with 8 kids is a lot different than what it looked like when I was in college, right? And sometimes exercise looks like playing football out in the backyard with my boys. That's exercise.
It's movement.
It's movement, exactly, and that's what we're
Mhm,
talking about is just using your body, especially with my profession. My profession is very sedentary. I sit in a chair and I talk to people.
mhm. Yeah.
So making time for that and getting up and moving, for me, it's getting up every hour between my sessions and just doing something brief. Sometimes it's just pumping out 5 push-ups on the floor of
Yeah,
my office
I was
floor.
gonna say I because I've exercised, I've been pretty adamant about that in my life. It's good for my mental health just to do some
Amen.
exercise. But I remember listening to a guy who said, he didn't have a ton of time to work out, but what he would do is once an hour, he had an alarm would go off on his phone, And in his office, he'd then set a 1-minute timer and he'd do as many push-ups as he could in a minute, as many just
Yeah.
body squats as he could in a minute, as
Yep.
just to pick a movement and for 1 minute straight do that movement. And that could be
Yes.
stretching too, you're just stretching
Yep.
out your back, you're stretching out your hammies, whatever it might be. But there's you can do a little clap your hands together and push against them and
Oh, yeah,
little
and do
things
some
like that.
resistance stuff.
Yeah, and for 1 minute every hour. And if you do that, if you're awake for 16 hours, well, there's 15 minutes of dynamic exercise throughout the course of your day,
Yeah.
which is better than nothing.
Amen.
Yeah, but what I hear you saying is like this stuff isn't rocket science,
No.
right? It's knowing, okay, what is something that would be a good for me,
Yep.
and then choosing to do it, finding
Mm,
time to do it, making time to do it.
and it's not letting the perfect get in the way of the good,
I like that. Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
not
Say more about that.
the idea of I need to go to the gym for an hour every day. No, you don't. That would be nice. That might be the perfect, but I can pump out some body squats
Hmm.
every hour. I can stretch when I'm pumping gas, right? So physically, right? And it's going to look again. It looks different for everybody, and I think that's kind of the hard part. Is like there isn't a cookie cutter answer to this, and yet start doing something because something's better than nothing, and you can always revamp. You can always revisit, right?
Yeah.
Like it's n- avoiding or working through the fear of not doing enough, I guess, and at least starting
Hmm.
something.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about kind of the whole person here, right? And I would even say, this theme, this undercurrent of avoidance.
Yeah,
We do that on a personal level. I know this thing is good for me, but I'm going to avoid it, right? I
yeah,
know I need 8 to 10 hours of sleep at night, but I'm going to
yeah,
watch another hour of TV just because, like, this is my me time. And so I'm avoiding actually the good thing, which is going to bed, which feels
yeah,
like I'm giving up on the day, and then the next day
yeah,
starts and the next day is going to be hard
yeah,
again or more work again or whatever it is. So I avoid those things on a personal level, but we do that on the team level too. And
yeah,
so much of what you have said is like we're avoiding hard conversations, right? So what are some simple frameworks that you use, like the simplest framework you can think of for having a hard conversation without blowing up a relationship or a team
yeah,
dynamic or a coworker relationship?
yeah. I start with asking the question, "Who's the enemy?" Because if you're the enemy, right, I don't have to hold back. But if the enemy is division, if the enemy is the evil one, if the enemy is, name it, whatever it is that's getting in the way of our team being successful, and the focus is the team, that helps me set aside my pride and my own self interest. That helps me sacrifice by stepping into that uncomfortable conversation and trying to do it in a constructive, kind way. So now when I say something, right, and my assumption is that you're not the enemy, I'm going to try to say it in a more constructive, kind way. And when you say something to me, I'm going to assume that you're saying it in the interest of the team. You're not saying it to tear me down. And this is a relational dynamic that I use in couples therapy too. Of like, okay, you're having a disagreement, you're butting heads, but that person across from you is your spouse. They're not your enemy, right? So can we assume that that person is saying this thing because they think it needs to be said, as opposed to they're saying it to attack me?
What a simple mindset shift to enter into the conversation to disarm not only them, but really to disarm yourself.
Yeah.
I'm combative by my personality,
Yeah.
and if
Okay.
I see an injustice or perceive an injustice, I want to squash it.
Yeah.
But to remember that sometimes, to remember in the moment who the enemy is.
Yeah.
And in my marriage, the enemy is not my wife. In fact,
Amen.
the enemy's Satan, right?
Yeah.
He's trying to destroy my marriage. So
Yes.
actually, this problem is very different from me versus her.
Yes.
My coworkers in the vineyard, Like the enemy, still Satan, right?
Yeah,
Maybe the enemy is actually the agenda we have at our team meeting.
yeah,
That might be the thing causing the most problem. But it's not the person who's with me trying to make disciples. They're not
yeah,
my enemy. But this
yeah,
thing that sows the discord, this reason for the discord might be, and we might need to attack that together.
yes, yes. And then being able to do that and assume that when that person says something that hurts, they're not doing it to hurt me, right?
Hmm.
It's like physical therapy. I like to say there's 3 ways to have a tough conversation. One is to avoid it. The second is like a back alley street fight, and this is what we see in our political discourse, right? It's no holds bars, below the belt strikes, right? If I don't win this argument, I'm at least gonna make you hurt so bad that you wish I did, kind of thing. And the third is like physical therapy. Physical therapy, I don't know if you ever had physical therapy, John,
Hmm.
but physical therapy is not always pleasant. In fact, it's usually not, right? Whether it's a deep tissue massage to try to release some scar tissue, and I rub my arm because I've had it done there and I have memories of that pain,
Hmm.
or it's stretching exercises, right? Or it's even strengthening exercises that maybe push you a little bit like to that limit. It's uncomfortable. But the point of the pain is healing, right? The point of the pain is healing. And so, yeah, sometimes I might have to say something uncomfortable to somebody that is painful to hear, but I want to say it in the most kind way possible. I want to use objective data, right? I want to use objective data that they might not want to hear, that disagrees with their perspective, to point something out so that we can work towards resolution. And I might want to share my subjective experience. That's the both and of the communications, the both and of really everything, right? It's like there's this objective reality. I'm seeing this pattern play out, and subjectively, this is how I feel about it. And then I want to follow that up with asking for asking for resolution in a positive way. Not, and when I say positive, I don't mean like happy go lucky, happy clappy kind of positive. I mean, I'm asking for something that's additive. I'm asking you to do something, not asking you to stop doing something.
The idea of building virtue versus avoiding
Yeah.
vice.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Or maybe in a team setting, it's like, this is our way forward, right? It's not that we just stop doing this activity or that we stop doing this whatever. It's that we're pursuing something,
Mm.
right? We're moving forward as a team. We're going to do something different. We're going to handle our agenda differently. We're going to do some new activity, or maybe we function as a team differently. Maybe the way that we approach, if we're talking about handling conflict, we approach conflict differently by introducing these skills and maybe some fair fighting rules.
Okay, so on that vein, just because I'm thinking, like, these are great tools, but I'm still at a point of, I'm a Catholic ministry professional. I'm a few years into a job, maybe just a couple years in.
Yeah.
I don't feel like my pastor's really approachable. And so
Yeah.
the idea of bringing up some area of conflict directly makes me incredibly anxious.
Mm-hmm.
How do you speak into that fear a little bit, that anxiety?
Okay. So I would ask, the most difficult heresies I've been told, the most dangerous ones, are the ones with a grain of truth. So something like when Protestant brethren will say something like, "Well, the Eucharist, communion is just a symbol." It's like, well, okay, it's a symbol in that it looks like bread and wine, right? Right, but as Catholics, we say it looks like bread and wine. Thomas says it, accidents of bread and wine, and it is truly, really the presence of Christ, right?
Both and.
Both and, right?
Mhm.
So that anxiety, that fear, I would ask, what's the grain of truth in it to start with? Right? Anxiety is extremely helpful when used in proper amounts and discerned properly, in that it offers energy, it offers motivation, it offers focus. Anxiety asks the what if questions, right? Anxiety kind of lives in the future and it can become problematic when it paralyzes us and overwhelms us. And yet, maybe it helps me think about what is it that I really need to focus on and say to this pastor. And maybe it helps me also think about how to go about it in a constructive way. We want to use prudential judgment here. Christ tells us, right, gives us a model of how to handle conflict. I think it was Christ. I guess as a good Catholic, I can't cite this verse, but we go to the person first,
Mhm.
right? We want to, again, assume the best of the other person, assume that that person is doing the best they can with what they have in the situation they're in. Now, if that doesn't go well for whatever reason, if I come to this pastor and I raise this concern and I try to do it in this kind way, right? Using examples, specific examples of what's actually been going on, raising my subjective experience, maybe even giving some insight into why I interpret this way, right? Why do I interpret this pastor as being unapproachable or whatever it is? And I do all of that and it doesn't go well. It goes sideways. Well, okay, maybe I do need to bring somebody else in with this conversation to mediate, right? And then ultimately, yeah, we follow that chain of command if it continues and we can't get a resolution together. But the goal is always to think, well, okay, am I working towards that reconciliation, that resolution of this conflict? Am I focusing on showing up in the way God is calling me to in that moment? Because as Catholics, I guess I believe that how we do things is just as important, if not more so, than what we do. Right? St. Louis the Ninth arguably had the worst crusades, right? The least successful crusades, and he's a saint.
I think Mother Teresa, I think Saint Mother Teresa said, "You're not." I think it was Saint Mother Teresa. You're not
Yeah.
called to success. You're called to faithfulness.
Faithfulness. Exactly. Exactly. And if God is calling you into that conversation with that pastor, right? It might not go the way you want it to, but can you walk away from it and say, I showed up and I did the best I could, did stepped into what God was calling me to, right? Even if it went sideways.
I have an example of that in my own life that might speak a little bit of peace, a little bit of freedom into any anxiety we might feel. I had just started. It was my first year at a parish, and
Yeah.
our team meetings were so bad, so
Okay.
very, very bad, that within the first 6 months, I decided I have to talk to the pastor about this.
Okay.
And I had been in ministry for a number of years. It was my first year at that parish, but I asked for a one-on-one meeting with our pastor, and in my head I had kind of done some prep, but I walked into the meeting essentially, and I just started to sweat because he was a
Uh,
very approachable guy. All of a sudden, we sat down, and he knew I wanted to talk about something serious, and
yeah.
all of his walls came up, and it was like talking to a block of granite. And I just said, and I was like, I can't get any rapport going. We're not, and so I just said, hey, this is where I'm at. Our meetings are really bad. And I just came out with it. I just knew I had to say something. And
Yeah.
he said, he goes, "Oh, I know they're bad." "Oh, okay. Can we talk about it?" "Sure." And then he received everything I said, and nothing ever changed. But what, but what came out of it was a realization that, well, having this tough conversation, it didn't kill me.
Yeah.
I didn't get fired.
Yeah.
And I realized that talking to Father about this isn't going to fix it. So it gave me
Yeah.
permission to think of, what are my workarounds? Okay, how
Yeah.
much energy should I bring to this?
Yeah.
And can I just get through it, recognizing that it just is what it is? Maybe I
Yeah.
can't change that, but I can focus then. Instead of focusing my energy on being really worked up about our meetings, I'll focus it elsewhere.
Yeah.
And that's a good outcome, to realize like,
Amen.
oh, okay, I need to just like engage elsewhere. And when I
Yeah.
focused my energies elsewhere, instead of focusing on our meeting and making that the thing, I actually realized that I could feed very fruitfully into the lives of my other coworkers by encouraging change, by helping them walk through transitions, by doing things like that directly, instead of making the team meeting more the home plate for that.
Well, and that's interesting because it leads to another piece here, right? We don't really know what other people are thinking. You didn't know that that pastor knew the meetings were bad. Now, I
He
don't
just
know
didn't
why.
care.
So, yeah, so that's what came out of that.
Yeah.
He didn't care that the meetings were bad, right? And so you got clarity on the situation because, I'd be curious, like, what you were thinking going, like, when you started sweating, like, what were the assumptions there of what this pastor was thinking? What were the assumptions? Like, one assumption was he didn't know
Mm,
and he was unaware that these could be better. And you found out that no, he just doesn't care.
yep.
And that clarity then is what allows us to move forward in confidence. Like, okay, we can start problem solving. I have data. And if we're not having conversations like this, if we're not having these tough conversations where we're revealing things and we're asking these questions and we're exploring these ideas coming from different perspectives, right? We're really moving forward. We're limiting ourselves by gathering and asking and doing those things because we don't know which way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think we can kind of take that. Let's kind of like bring it around, kind of circle with the conversation that we've taken. But with
Okay.
all these pieces that we've talked about, you've brought up the question of like who's the enemy, and how that's central to it, finding clarity and all that. What if every parish listener paying
Mhm.
attention, every parish leader listening right now made one change this week to improve collaboration, emotional health on their team? What is the thing that you would tell them to start doing?
Mm. One thing.
Yeah, yeah, boil it down.
So an actionable step, what is something we could do this week, really,
Mhm.
to make things just 1 degree better? I would well, I guess maybe I would start with, can we when we recognize there's or yeah, tenseness, anxiety, whatever happening in our team, can we name the enemy? Or at least name that we're not each other's enemy, right? Can I
Are you
look at
saying, like, if you recognize there's tension between me and this coworker, go
yeah,
to them and have that conversation, is what you're saying?
engage in that conversation, and when that comes up, right? When you start what I find for myself, I had a really, really really bad roommate. Like, I would have dreams about this guy that were unpleasant to me, and one of the ways that I changed my thinking about him was I would tell him I love him.
Mm.
He would do something that irked me, and I would say, "I love you." It kinda sounds like the Southern God bless her kind of thing, but
Mhm.
but but it really did work on my heart, like, as I recognized that he wasn't doing these things to upset me, right? Like, he I don't wanna go into it. But anyways, by looking at your teammate and telling yourself you're that this person's not my enemy, you're not my enemy, right? He or she is not my enemy. By telling them, "Hey, I'm on your team. We're on the same team. We're after the same things," and even identifying those goals. Constant reminder that, okay, yeah, maybe we disagree, maybe we have different perspectives, but it's again rethinking this of, okay, we're looking the same direction, we're going the same direction. We just have different ideas of how to get there. We're trying to go to LA, you want to go through Kansas City, I want to go through Colorado, right? Like, okay, we got to figure that out. And yet we both want to get there. I don't know if you want to go to LA. I really don't, but no desire. Dublin. Let's go to Ireland.
There you
Godspeed.
go.
Now we gotta decide which airport to fly out of,
There you
right?
go.
And we're both trying to go the same direction. And so reorienting ourselves to we're fighting that common enemy. And now when I feel attacked or upset or defensive, I can identify that the enemy is the defensiveness. The enemy is the divisiveness. The enemy is the evil one, right? Satan, the devil. The enemy's not you. And I think that's really where it starts. And from there, that gives us the reasons why we need the skills, why we need to use things like gentle startup, which is kind of the theme of what I was outlining earlier of how to bring up a tough conversation, right? Do it in a gentle way, right? The thinking physical therapy. I'm trying to bring healing, not further injury. So I'm going to
Yeah.
be careful with my words, right? Because you're not my enemy.
No, and I think that that's a mindset shift that is central to Christianity, to our Catholic
Amen.
faith. And
Yeah.
I had, when I my first position as a campus minister at a Catholic high school, I had lots of mentoring with youth, obviously, as part of my youth ministry. But I
Yeah.
remember one student came in and she was really struggling because her sister had come home from college, and
Okay.
this was a sister that she butted heads with. She left, so it's like, "Oh, I'm finally free," and now she's back, and she's a pain in my butt again, and she's just saying, I don't remember if she got quite to the point of saying, "I just hate my sister," but it was like, "I really, really don't like her. I can't stand being
Yeah.
around her, yada, yada," and I my recommendation was her for her was, "I want you to start every day by praying for her.
Mhm.
Praying for her good, not just saying like, 'Oh, Lord, I pray that her brakes on her bike stop and she falls over and breaks her front teeth.' Don't pray for that. Pray for her good. Pray that this relation she's dating somebody. Pray that that's a good thing, pray that she experiences all the love she needs today." Yeah. And a month later we met again and she said, "You wouldn't believe it, Mr. Cons, like everything's different. I love my sister so much now." I said, "Oh,
Yeah.
what happened? Did she change?" And she goes, "No, I changed."
Amen.
Praying for her sister, praying for her good, remolded her heart. It gave her a heart of flesh instead of heart of stone, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It trained her to think of a desire the best for her, and it just unlocked all that for her. And that
Yeah.
simple mindset shift of Father Mike Schmitz is really good about saying this. He says there is no us and them in the world, right? There is no us Catholics and them everyone else.
Yeah.
Us Catholics who do all the right things, them Catholics who have all these weird things that they want to do, right?
Yeah.
No, there is only us. There is only us. God has made us all in his image. We are supposed to go and get them and make them a part of us, but it's only us on this journey. Like that is it. There is just us. And so we have to start with that love for them that makes
Amen.
them one of us. Right?
Yeah.
And that's the mindset that we need to have going forward. That we are called to communion, to be one. And so we have to remember that.
Yeah. That was Christ's last, well, one of his final prayers was that they be one.
That they be one. Amen. Well, this has been a great conversation. Thanks for being on the podcast. Is there anywhere that you'd like to invite our listeners to engage with you, follow up with you if they heard something that they liked today?
Yeah, you can check our website at intpsychology.com. You can also find me on the Catholic Psychotherapy Association website, which is somewhere I would, if you're looking for a Catholic therapist, that would be the place that I would send people to look, or you can reach out to me as well. But yeah, Catholic Psychotherapy Association, wonderful organization helping to shape, yeah, Catholic mental health professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being on the podcast. And,
You're
and
welcome, John.
And for our listeners, I want to encourage you, reach out to us. Teams need that clarity, they need that accountability, and they need those boundaries. And so we do have a leadership alignment workshop that we run through Catholic ministry professionals. And if you'd like to get more clarity on boundaries, more clarity on how to move forward, if you'd like to address conflict in a place where it's safe to do so, I encourage you to reach out to us. Book a discovery call at CatholicMinPro, CatholicMinistryProfessionals.com, and we can have that conversation, see what that looks like with our leadership alignment workshop. Well, Justin, thank you for being on the podcast.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you.
All right. Don't let this conversation be just another good idea. Reach out, take action on it. And we'll see you in the vineyard.